Hey everybody, it's Derek and welcome back to CRM Tip of the Day's Video Tips, your source for tips and step-by-step instruction on the latest version of Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So in today's video, we're going to go ahead and look at a very requested feature that I've had from a video perspective, and that is to do a video on project service automation. Now, I know we've done some stuff with field service and we've done some stuff with voice of the customer, and both times when I go in and do those, I say, there's a lot of moving pieces to this one. You can't cover all of it in a 10-minute video or 15-minute video. That is absolutely 100% true with project service automation. There are so many different moving pieces and elements and things that are involved with this that we can't do it justice necessarily in a 10 to 15 minute video, but I do want to at least get you started and kind of spark your curiosity, because it's a very cool feature. There's a lot of setup and there's a lot of design, but one of the nice things is if you sign up for one of the new kind of guided trials that they offer out there, particularly the ones that are targeted at service-based situations, they actually have a project service automation trial in there that has a bunch of sample data, and that's actually what you can use to kind of get started. And that's one of the things that we're going to do today, is kind of show you how that works. So where do we begin? So again, if you've installed a trial and you have specifically declared within that trial that you want to do a service-based trial, one of the things that will get installed into that will be project service automation. And so if I come into here, I can see an option here for project service. And so there's a lot of different elements that would come into this. You're going to see items around the projects themselves. You're going to see the items around project templates, contracts, milestones, so on and so forth. Now, the other thing that you're going to see in here is project service does share a lot of items with field service. So things like, resource skills, resource roles, proficiency models, a lot of those types of different situations are going to feed in and be very similar to what you would see with field service. So if you're implementing both, you're going to see a lot of commonalities that come across. They may use them slightly different, but they do have a lot of the items that are in there. Now, from a project perspective, there's kind of two key areas that they focus on from a project management perspective. There's the actual projects themselves. And so if I look at the items in here and I go into my active projects, one of the things that I can do in here, I'll go ahead and open up a project. Is you have your project. So it defines the customer that you want to work with. Each project has a calendar template that's associated with it. So this is going to be, what are the working hours that are going to be associated with this project? So how are the items that you're going to be using from that standpoint as you're going through? The other thing that you're going to see in here is there's this concept of what's called a organizational unit. Now, as opposed to business units where they're much more from a security-based structure standpoint, organizational units will be used to define things like your work structure or your organization structure. So for example, let me just go in here real quick to organizational units. So these are going to be things like, your organization. So France, India, Switzerland, where are these, maybe call centers that you're working with? Where are these resource centers that you're using from an application standpoint that are going to be involved in these projects as people are going out and working on them from an application standpoint? Now, if I come back in here to settings, then you can also see that I have very similar things, like I said, to the proficiency models, the resource roles. The also thing that you have in here are going to be transaction and expense categories. Those are going to be able to be used from an expense tracking standpoint and from a billable line item standpoint to define what type of item it is that you're putting into the application. So is it something that you're billing back to the customer? Is it a no charge? Is it a write-off? You can define how that information is being brought in. So let's go back to the project. So again, once I go back into my project and I open this up, one of the things that we'll see inside the project itself is now I have the capabilities to define kind of the estimation around when this is going to start, what are the estimated hours, what are the estimated costs. I can also add team-based information, so I can define who I need from a team perspective. So one of the other things that project service allows you to do is to set up these teams. So who's going to be the project manager? Who are going to be the developers or the lead developers or the supporting developers? If we're going to outsource to another organization or to another department, how are we going to outsource? What are the costs associated with those? The other thing that's nice about these is as you're booking these individual resources, you can do things like define what are going to be their percentage booking statuses to determine how busy you want to keep people as you're working through things. The other thing that you're going to see in here is sales. So one of the other things that you'll have the ability to do, and we won't necessarily talk about it in this video, but one of the other things that you have the ability to do that they really push from a project service perspective is to use it within your sales process. So now you have this whole concept of project-based opportunities and project-based quotes and contracts. So when you're creating opportunities, if these opportunities are selling projects or projects that you're going to be delivering to customers, you can now create project-based opportunities where you can define the individual products that are going to be associated with that opportunity. Then just like you would, you can take that opportunity, attach a quote line item to it. Once you've gone through and sold that individual situation, then you have the capabilities to associate or create a project contract. And that project contract is actually what you can use now to set up and deliver the actual project that you want to do inside Microsoft Dynamics CRM using project management. So now let's look at some of the features. So this is a project that's already been set up. It's kind of in a quote phase from an application standpoint. If I come up into here, now I go into my related items, I have different things that I can do. So I have my work estimate breakdowns. I have my resource requirements where I can define what specific types of resources and what are the requirements associated with those. As people start, submitting expenses and time items and those kind of things, I can actually look at my actuals and my accruals for the project information as well. But let's look at this from a perspective of a project estimation standpoint. So in here, when I come in and I go into kind of my project estimation, this is where I can kind of see, what's going to happen within this. So these are the individual team members that I suspect we're going to need for this individual project. So it tells me what the program manager, the functional consultant, the technical consultant, I can see specifically what are some of the different tasks and items that we're going to be using that individual person for as part of this project. So I can see tentative start and end dates for each one of those. I can also see total sales prices based upon those, because again, for each one of these roles, I can now define costs and items associated with that, so I can define what is in that individual situation as we're working through this. So I can do that for each role that is going to come into this based upon the timeline that we've specified for each one of those individual situations. So this gives me the capabilities to look at this at kind of a week structure standpoint. So I can come in from each specific week of the application, and I can see specifically where these items fit into and what particular items we want to work through from that standpoint. Just like any scenario, I have the capabilities to add or tweak this information as we're moving forward. And that's one of the things we can show you a little bit more when we get into some of the other demos as we're going through. I also, as I'm working through this project, I can go into my work breakdown structure. And so here's kind of your Gantt chart scenario. So this is going to tell you, what is the role that's using this particular situation? What is the task? What is the information that's associated with it? What are the resources that are going to be assigned? And I can see the specific scenarios for the project itself. And just like if I was using this, within like a Microsoft project or something like that, I have my kind of bar option that I can use within my Gantt chart to see specifically where I'm at, and then each one of these items have tasks underneath them, and I can associate what's happening within those tasks. Now, I made the reference to Microsoft Project. One of the big things I want to make sure that I address in the video is this is not Microsoft Project inside Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So you are not using MS Project. This is project management capabilities inside Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So it's an application that has been built and run and focused inside the CRM application. So it is very different than if you were using Microsoft Project, but it now gives you the capabilities to surface much of that project information inside the application. As you're working through this, you also can do your project tracking. So this is where I can go in and I can see specifically what's happening. As people are putting time into that, I can actually see how many hours have been billed. So once my individual people go in and start submitting time against this, those will update my actual information. So within my actuals, then I will start to see comparison lines. So I can actually see, okay, here's where we're at, here's how many hours are remaining, here's where we are from a progress standpoint. So now I can actually see what's been put into this as we're moving forward. And just like anything, you have the capabilities to make, small little minor adjustments to things as people are entering it. Now, one of the things we didn't necessarily mention is, from an end user perspective. So people are going to start to get stuff assigned to them. So I'm going to know, okay, I've got, X number of hours I need to work with. So once people get assigned kind of a resource record that's associated with them, now they can be added to the project as a resource, whether it's a, developer or whatever specific type of project scenario that you've specified. And then tasks can start to get assigned to those individual people. So from a project standpoint, as far as managing it, okay, Derek, you're in charge of this. What then allows me to do at that point is I could now come in and I could start looking at my bookings and my tasks and see what specific items have been associated with me. I also would have the capabilities to go into my timesheet entries and start entering time and expenses. And then being able to, as a person who enters time and expenses, if I am a manager, I would now be able to come in from a managerial perspective, and I would be able to see what specific people have submitted time and items against the project, and then be able to approve those. And so moving forward within these series of videos, we'll start breaking down the individual components of it. What I wanted to do first is just kind of get you started with it, and then we'll start showing you what the approvals process looks like and the timesheet entries. The big thing that, the message that you want to see around this is people are kind of really pushing this from a persona standpoint. So think about it from a project manager standpoint, or from a developer standpoint, or maybe a team lead standpoint, maybe a salesperson who's going to be out selling these. There's different ways that they can utilize this. And so that's one of the things that we want to show you when we're moving forward. But again, what I would really encourage in between now and the next video is just playing with some of the sample data that's in here, kind of getting started. And then we'll start walking you through kind of the sales related portion of it, and then the true project management standpoint of it as well. So that's going to do it for our 10,000 mile overview on project service automation. Again, I hope you found it useful, at least to get you started with it. Moving forward, we will absolutely spend quite a bit more time delving into each one of the additional features and options that are available. But for all of us here at CRM Tip of the Day, this has been Derek saying again, thanks a lot everybody for watching. Take care and have a good one.